You know, when I walked into this chapel for the first time as an MDiv student, it was January of 1988. Walked into this chapel. I would have never imagined on that January date in 1988 that I would find myself 24 years later having to be at an event like this, speaking to Christian leaders, because the citizens of North Carolina were now having to vote whether or not marriage would be between a man and a woman or something else. I never would have dreamt it 24 years ago when I walked here. You're here today for a reason. God has brought this seminary to where it is today because it is training men and women with a biblical knowledge and a biblical understanding to be able to go out into the highways and the hedges and to share the truth wherever we go. And you bear a huge responsibility as a spiritual leader. All I can think about is that 40 years ago, this coming January, we watched our nation take a direction that began to kill innocent life in the womb of their mother. For all the years that God has allowed me to pastor, not a year's gone by that I haven't preached a sanctity of human life message. And there hasn't been a single message in those years that I have not raised the question. In January of 1973, where were the voices? Where were the Christian leaders? Where were those who valued life and the biblical basis of life? And I think about these last 40 years, all of the time and all of the effort and all of the money raised and all of the things we've done to try to see that decision overturned. And with all the strides that have been made, 40 years later, we're still not there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this time it's a little different. There's not a court waiting to make the decision. Thank God that He raised up in our state legislature a majority that would put it on the ballot and say, and probably the first time in my lifetime, and I believe will be the last opportunity in my lifetime, for the citizens of this state to go to the polls and determine the answer to how marriage will be defined. You and I got 3 kids. I don't want them or their children, my grandchildren, God forbid, 40 years from now, asking the question. Back in May of 2012, where were the voices? Where were the Christian leaders? Our time is now. And God has brought us here for such a time as this. And I challenge you to be the spiritual leader that God has called you to be.